Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are dissecting an event that absolutely disrupted the tech world on the evening of July 16, 2026. Imagine this, a Beijing startup, actually named after a famous Pink Floyd album, quietly pushes a brand new AI model onto its servers. There's no glossy keynote, no celebrity founder pacing around a stage. It was just a stealthy release that within 36 hours completely shocked Wall Street and literally wiped trillions of dollars off the global semiconductor market. The culprit? Moonshot AI's Kimi K3. It's a truly fascinating moment that is rewriting the rules of the AI frontier, and today we're going to break down exactly how and why it happened.
Okay, let's dive into this. We'll start with the sheer scale of the trillion-dollar shock, then unpack what Moonshot actually built under the hood and explore their new premium pricing threat. From there, we'll look at a really counterintuitive economic principle called the Jevons paradox, examine the geopolitical silicon reality, and finally, map out exactly what all of this means next.
Let's kick things right off with Section 1, the trillion-dollar shock, a stealthy launch, and absolute market panic.
So Moonshot AI didn't just appear out of thin air, right? If you look at their relentless release cadence, starting from Kimi K1.5 back in January 2025, they have been iterating constantly. They tested new architectures like Kimi Linear in late 2025, right up to the sudden drop of K3 in July 2026. And they timed this launch with almost cinematic precision, pushing it live on Kimi Code just before the opening address to the World Artificial Intelligence Conference in Shanghai. The market instantly recognized what they were looking at, and they saw massive disruption. The reaction was pure panic. Between late June and the immediate aftermath of the K3 launch, global semiconductor stocks shed roughly $3.3 trillion in market value. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index fell straight into bear market territory. Industry giants took really heavy hits. TSMC dropped 7%, SoftBank fell 9%, and Nvidia even briefly lost its crown as the world's most valuable company. Wall Street was absolutely terrified that a highly capable Chinese model would suddenly make expensive Western AI infrastructure obsolete.
Which naturally brings us to Section 2, what Moonshot actually built. Let's look at the engine under the hood.
To understand the panic, you really have to understand the tech. Kimi 3 is a 2.8 trillion parameter model. That makes it the largest open-weight system ever built. But its secret sauce is sparse mixture of experts. Think of it like a massive library with 896 distinct expert librarians. But for any given question you ask, it only wakes up 16 of them. This means its active footprint is around 50 billion parameters. So it has the massive reasoning capacity of a 3 trillion parameter model, but it only pays the computational cost of a mid-sized one. It is computing efficiency taken to an absolute extreme.
And this brilliantly illustrates how it stacks up against the absolute bleeding edge of American AI. The results are staggering. On the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, K3 scored a 57.1. That places its raw intelligence in a dead heat with Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.8 and OpenAI's GPT 5.5. While it slightly trails absolute flagships like Fable 5 and GPT 5.6 Sol, it is remarkably close. And on Arena's blind human preference platform, K3 actually ranked first globally in front-end code evaluation. But, benchmarks only tell part of the story. K3's true differentiator is its capability as a long-horizon agent. We are talking about autonomous, highly complex problem-solving. Moonshot actually demonstrated K3 spending 48 straight hours designing a simulated inference chip using open-source tools. It even edited its own teaser video from 56 source clips with frame-accurate synchronization, which honestly might put some human editors on notice. This isn't just a basic chatbot, it's a swarm of agents built for massive parallel execution.
Moving on to Section 3, the premium pricing threat. This is where they attack the high end.
Now, what's really interesting here is the drastic shift in pricing strategy. This breaks entirely from the narrative we saw earlier in 2025. Previously, Chinese models scared the market by being incredibly cheap, like DeepSeek V4 at just 87 cents per million output tokens. Kimi K3, however, is priced at $15. For a Chinese model, that's a massive premium. But compared to the American frontier, where Claude Fable 5 costs $50, K3 is directly attacking the premium pricing power of Western labs, undercutting incumbents by more than 2/3.
However, that $15 headline price requires a giant asterisk. K3 is verbose to a fault. It's kind of like that colleague who writes a novel when a quick email would do perfectly fine. When benchmarked, it consumed 130 million reasoning tokens for tasks where comparable models use just 63 million. We call this the verbosity tax. Because it thinks out loud so much, analysts estimate K3 can actually cost 50 to 70% more to run in the real world than a model like GPT-5.6. The sticker price is low for sure, but the token burn rate is incredibly high.
Which takes us right into Section 4, the Jevons paradox, and exactly why the market got it wrong.
That high token burn rate highlights a fascinating economic concept called the Jevons paradox. When Wall Street saw an efficient, highly capable open model from China, they panicked and sold off semiconductor chips, assuming AI infrastructure would just get cheaper and less necessary. But the Jevons paradox states that when you make a resource cheaper and more efficient, you don't use less of it. Total consumption actually skyrockets. Cheaper, capable AI unlocks entirely new use cases, fundamentally expanding the market of what is even possible.
As investor Gavin Baker put it, this kind of model is a net positive for essentially every other company in the hardware space. A token-hungry, verbose model like K3 is a chipmaker's absolute dream customer. These agentic workloads keep data center inference clusters saturated 24/7. This is exactly why none of the major hyperscalers cut their spending. U.S. cloud providers have committed to massive capital expenditures in 2026, hitting that $600 to $700 billion mark, and NVIDIA just posted a record $81.6 billion first quarter revenue. The demand for compute isn't shrinking at all, it's multiplying.
Let's pivot to Section 5, the geopolitical silicon reality, building on a hedge stack.
Moonshot's achievement is even more striking when you look at the hardware it was built on. With the U.S. export controls effectively reducing NVIDIA's advanced data center business in China to zero, Chinese labs have to operate on a deliberately hardware-agnostic, hedged stack. Day zero adaptation to domestic silicon is now mandatory. Huawei is targeting 600,000 Ascend 910C chips this year, alongside Cambricon's own 500,000 accelerators. They are literally forced to pool thousands of these domestic chips together just to compensate for weaker single-chip performance, and yet they are still achieving frontier results.
This dynamic has sparked an intense, deeply divided policy debate in the United States regarding export controls and the AI Overwatch Act. On one side, you have NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang arguing that U.S. policy is backfired by driving American market share to zero and forcing global AI researchers to build on non-American tech. On the exact opposite side, Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei has strongly defended these restrictions, comparing the export of advanced AI chips to selling nuclear weapons. Whatever perspective you take on this, K3 has undeniably become the ultimate real-world test case for these policies.
And finally, Section 6, what this means next, because the moat is now measured in months.
So the crucial point here is, what do you actually do with this? For closed model labs in the West, the competitive moat is no longer measured in years, it's months. For enterprise technology leaders watching this unfold, your game plan requires 3 concrete steps. First, wait for the actual open weights to drop on July 27 to independently evaluate the model, especially for long-horizon coding. Second, don't be fooled by the term open weight. You must budget for K3's high token verbosity and the massive 64 accelerator supernodes required to run it. And third, benchmark your own real-world cost per task, not just the headline token price.
We'll leave you with this final thought. Moonshot AI named their company on the 50th anniversary of Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon. It was a bold statement of their ambitions from the start. With Kimi K3 matching the capabilities of top-tier Western models and operating on a vastly different hardware reality, we really have to ask, is the dark side of the moon already here? It certainly seems that the far edge of the global AI frontier is a lot closer and a lot better lit than many wanted to believe. Thank you for joining this explainer, and keep your eyes on those benchmarks.